but the most important thing for me in my success and in my career has been that personal customer service. Hey, I hear you. I'm here for you. I pick up my phone. I'm not going to hide from you. I think this generation also struggles with conflict management. So when something is going wrong, you tend to want to hide. You don't want to really address it. And
right. Well, that's an advanced skill, right? I mean, it's one thing to say, "Hey, I'm here for you, and I have your part, and it'll be in there in the morning," right? But when you don't have the part, no, it's 6 months out or whatever. I mean, how do you offer empathy, or how do you have that conversation?
Listen, I got this advice from an actual divorce attorney. And you talk about guys that have to give bad news.
Yeah.
Ultimately, bad news is still news, right?
Yeah.
No news is bad.
Is the worst.
Is the worst.
Sure.
And he said, essentially, if I found out that there was something that was contrary or negative for my client, I told them immediately.
Hello, and welcome to the Elevator Careers Podcast, sponsored by the Allred Group. I am your host, Matt Allred. In this podcast, we talk to the people whose lives and careers are dedicated to the vertical transportation industry to inform and share lessons learned, building upon the foundation of those who have gone before to inspire the next generation of elevator careers. Today, our guest is Michael Caputa, Regional Vice President with Blackstone Elevator Consulting in Florida. Michael started his career with Thyssenkrupp Elevator as an account manager in Atlanta and has grown in several different roles and companies. Michael is an endurance athlete and has proven over and over the power of the mind over matter. Michael believes the best bet you can make is on yourself. He likes to say hard work beats talent. Stay humble, hustle, and never give up. This is part one. Michael, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Thank you. I'm excited. It's always a pleasure to talk to you and to be able to, to get to know you at a little deeper level today is exciting. So thanks again. So I do want to find out, tell me how you got started in the elevator industry.
Oh yeah. Just like everybody else, total accident, right? So I had gone back to college as a non-traditional student and was finishing up at the University of Georgia late in my 20s and needed a job. And so I went to the UGA career fair and was walking around and just kind of overwhelmed with all of the different opportunities. Yeah. And, just at that stage of my life, I really was starting to understand that it's time to get serious. I had big boy bills and it was getting ready to start a family. And I saw a booth for a company that my aunt actually worked for. And I couldn't even pronounce the name of it. So I called her on the phone and I said, hey, this company that you work for, Thyssenkrupp. She's like, whoa. It's Thyssen, like, listen, don't go over there and embarrass me. I said, no, I just want to know more about the company. And she said, well, here's the deal. I'm in human resources, so I don't know exactly what they do, but I know that they make really good money. And so I was like, okay, that's what I want to do. So I walked over to the booth and filled out an application, wherever, gave them my resume. And that's how I got into the elevator industry.
Awesome. So, that's awesome. So she at least told you how to say the word, right? I mean, that's
huge. I didn't embarrass myself or
her. So you started, where did you start then? You were at UGA finishing up and...
Yeah, I did. I finished up at UGA, started in March of 2008 with Thyssenkrupp in Atlanta.
Okay.
Started out as an account manager and went through the crash course of learning the elevator industry. At that time, they had a training program where essentially you were in the field as a helper with the mechanic. And so you spent time in service, you spent time in modernization, and you spent time in new installation. So Monday through Thursday in the field, Friday in the office, and did that for about 2.5, 3 months, and got my first territory as an account manager and had a blast, learning the business. Essentially,
when did things really start to click? I mean, I just imagine, day one, maybe even week one, it's like, what is this? What?
It's a lot of drinking out of a fire hydrant, right? There's just so much new stuff. I mean, before you get in the industry, for me, it was you push a button, you get on the elevator, you get to your floor, and you get off.
Done.
Yeah, and you had no idea that there was a multi-billion-dollar business behind all of this, and so
Right.
it's it didn't really start to click until almost a year, maybe 18 months into the industry, and actually now all of a sudden you start to see that okay, all the fruit of the labor from before
Nice.
is starting to come to fruition, and it starts to slow down a little bit, right? I think about a high school athlete transitioning into college athletics, right? It's the
Right.
same thing. Everything's moving a million miles an hour, and then as you get to the end of that journey, everything slows down, and you are able to execute. And that's essentially what happened about 12 months after being in the industry.
Yeah. Thank you. Who are some of your mentors that really you feel like helped you navigate through that and succeed?
Yeah, we were very fortunate in Atlanta to have some great leadership. Jay Rogers at the time was the regional general manager or vice president for the Southeast, or pretty much Georgia, not all of Florida, but Georgia, the Carolinas, Tennessee, and he was such a great mentor. Having come up through the industry, done all of the lines of business, and he was a very good instructor and teacher where he'd pull you off to the side and actually come alongside you. At the time, Ryan Bunn was our sales manager. He was super successful, and he's had a great career in the elevator industry as well. And he was extremely helpful in showing me the difference in elevator contracts and understanding the nuts and bolts of how we structure the deal or the contract, and how to add value to the client.
Right.
Um, those two guys were very helpful as mentors. And then I also had some mentors outside of the business that were extremely helpful, that, were running major organizations and were able to show me from the consumer side, what they were looking at or looking for in an elevator contractor. So that was also very helpful.
Awesome. What do you think's the biggest, the single biggest thing you've learned that has really had an impact on how you've been able to succeed?
I think it's not something that I hadn't learned previously. It's something that I think we all know inherently, is that people ultimately don't want to be sold.
Sure.
People are looking to buy. And if you can come alongside and add value and empathy and understanding, then you are going to be successful, because people are going to be attracted to that. And as much as I knew it prior to coming into the industry, I didn't really have the opportunity to practice it like I did when I came
Right.
into the industry. And so being able to see that, 9 times out of 10, just getting out of the way and letting the customer tell you what they actually need, and then giving them value propositions to those needs instead of just trying to sell them things. I think that is, and you learn that in management too, when you're
Sure.
dealing with people, right?
Yeah.
So,
Well, and like you said, maybe you hadn't had a chance to practice it as consistently, but when you're in that role and it's like every single day you see it over and over and over.
correct.
Very cool. What have you learned to love most about the industry?
I think what I loved most about the industry is it's still a service-based industry for the most part, and it's relationship driven. And
Right.
that's what gets me fired up. It's people, right? It's the people, your clients, and it's also the your employees. It touches everybody, from the passengers to the owners to the contractors, and it's all about relationship. And I love that. I love that. I'm not sitting behind a computer doing spreadsheets all day. I'm actually getting out there and rubbing elbows with the people.
Right. Right. What what would you say are some of the biggest changes you've seen in the time that you've been in the industry?
I think, when you look at, I think the world has changed, which is now causing the industry to change, correct?
Sure.
So you look at some of the things that have happened just from a global standpoint, or from even just here in America. We had the recession in the mid 2000s, and that changed the industry. We had to figure out ways to continue to supply services while our costs were increasing.
Mm.
And then you had another great period of time between 2012 up until 2019 with the pandemic. And so I think what you're starting to see, the biggest changes are the way that we deliver service. How do we deliver service by managing cost? And then also technology. How do we leverage technology? Because the elevator industry as a whole has never been technological, even though there is technology in it. The elevator system can be complex, but now we're starting to go into different areas, the Internet of Things to do predictive maintenance. We're looking at AI now to get algorithms and to try to figure out how a better way to service or to see how elevators can function better. And so that's what I think we've seen the most changes is, how do you manage cost?
Sure.
In a world where prices are pretty much staying the same, and then how is the technology going to also help us be successful moving forward?
Yeah. Well, and talking about costs, and I know certainly there have been some issues with supply chain over the last few years or whatever, but and I don't know that they're threats to the industry per se. I think that that's part of my question though is and maybe it's for certain business models or certain businesses. It could be a threat. How are you seeing those things affect businesses?
I read a quote from the CEO of ChatGPT, because there were a bunch of people that are concerned that AI is going to take over the world and we're going to be, working for robots. And I see this with the industry. And the reason why I bring it up is that, you get concerned that the industry is going to suffer or have some negative consequences, but you can never underestimate the power of humanity and the ability for people to pivot and to make changes. And so I do see an opportunity to where, as the industry changes, there will be a market for other players to come in, whether that's small, non-union independent companies or even the mid-level union independent companies to come in and to not influence the market, but capture a portion of the market that the majors may or may not be able to capture. And so I see the industry continuing to grow and continuing to evolve and accommodate the needs, because elevators aren't going anywhere.
Right.
I mean, even if we didn't build another elevator, for the rest of the history, there would still be enough to maintain and modernize, right? And so it's here to stay. But I really think that the companies on the contracting side that are going to be the most successful are the ones that are going to be the most fluid, the ones that are going to be the most to spot the changes and then to put resources where the resources need to be put in order to service the customer.
Yeah. Well, and to your point, that is humanity. There's always somebody that notices, oh my gosh, if I just, put my service or my talent here, then boom, I'm going to create a whole new industry, company, opportunity, whatever.
Absolutely. And that's what one of the things that is another great asset or attribute of our industry is that it's not cookie cutter. Every opportunity is not the right opportunity for every client or customer or contractor. And you can have niche boutique elevator companies. You can have the big, who's going to build the big airports and so it's great that it's well-rounded and that there is so much opportunity for all different companies to be successful.
Yeah, absolutely. What advice would you give, I don't know, maybe to the industry overall or to, certain, just curious what you're seeing, or maybe if you, were to wave a magic wand to, change something, what would you say?
I think that just remember what your strength is. And then remember that when you overplay a strength, it can become a weakness. And so it's hard when you have so much pressure to perform. But I think that the industry needs to remember its roots, and it needs to remember, why we're here. And that's to provide quality service and safety to the client and to the riding passenger. And when we stay in our lane and we figure out, the best ways to maximize those things, then I think that you provide a service that is valuable and is needed. But the pressure, I see a lot of pressure, and it's inherent. People, you got to grow. If you're not growing, you're dying.
Right.
And so you may become ambitious, or you may lose sight of what that strength is, and then you overplay that strength, and then all of a sudden you've got a whole nother set of challenges and issues on your hands.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. And maybe you've spoken to this, but just by talking about, knowing your strengths, playing your strengths, what would you say is absolutely critical to success as an individual in the elevator industry?
customer service, absolutely. Communication, over communication, never assuming. It's so easy now in the smartphone era and in
Sure.
emails, just to get lost in that. I'm just going to send it a text, or I mean, quite frankly, we're treating email as instant messaging anyway.
Right.
In this era, and you can get wrapped up, or you get so many phone calls you can't return voicemails. But the most important thing for me in my success and in my career has been that personal customer service. Hey, I hear you. I'm here for you. I pick up my phone. I'm not going to hide from you. I think this generation also struggles with conflict management. So when something is going wrong, you tend to want to hide. You don't want to really address it. And
Right. Well, that's an advanced skill, right? I mean, it's one thing to say, "Hey, I'm here for you, and I have your part, and it'll be in there in the morning," right? But when you don't have the part, no, it's 6 months out or whatever. I mean, how do you offer empathy, or how do you have that conversation?
Listen, I got this advice from an actual divorce attorney. And you talk about guys that have to give bad news.
Yeah.
Ultimately, bad news is still news, right?
Yeah.
No news is bad.
Is the worst.
Is the worst.
Sure.
And he said, essentially, if I found out that there was something that was contrary or negative for my client, I told them immediately. I wanted them to know immediately. I didn't want them to have to be. I think in our human nature, we're cynical. And if we're not getting any information, we're already thinking the worst. So you deliver the news, right? You go ahead and deliver the news. And then you reassure them and let them know that you're not going anywhere. And even if you don't have the solution yet, you will. You remind them that you will, and that's how you empathize with them. And then he said, with good news, that can wait. That has a shelf life.
Wow, that is a little bit backwards from what I mean. I'm tempted, right? When it's bad, it's like, oh my gosh, I don't want to deliver. I'll wait for a week, and then
Yeah. But what I've learned in all of that is that as much as I would like to think that I am this great fragment, tackle box mentality that I can compartmentalize and put these bad things in their place and focus on the good, I'm really not, because it always weighs on me anyway. So I want to get that off my chest as an individual, so that I can move on, and really start focusing on solutions. I think if you're stuck in the fear of it, or maybe it's not fear, it's just uncomfortable. Nobody wants to deliver bad news, but it really prohibits you from moving forward at your full capacity.
absolutely.
You get it out on the table, and look, we've all had our fair share of being reprimanded, I'll say, or
Sure.
spoken to in a way we didn't like. But quite frankly, the more and more you do it, the more and more you see that people appreciate it. They really do
Well,
appreciate it.
and to your point, I mean, I know that helping people find a job, right? If they don't hear something quickly, they've already assumed the worst. They've already assumed it, and so the sooner whatever it is, right, that you can just give them something. At least they'll know they've already walked that path. They've already said,
And it's
given themselves
unfortunate because when you're around the people that are constant optimists, that just kind of rubs off on you. Like these people are the ones that nothing's going to phase them, and that's kind of what I'm striving to be. Is what? Hey, I've got some bad news for you, but that's not the end of the story.
It's not the end of the world, right? Not the end of your life. It's not the. I mean,
it's not. It's not. And you gain so much more credibility doing it that way than ducking and hiding. right?
That's awesome. Yeah, no, it's great. And I mean, it kind of feeds in, and this, again, maybe this is a little redundant, but what advice would you give to somebody who's brand new? They're just finishing up at UGA. They're starting next week with TK in Atlanta. What would you say to them?
Oh, listen, show up every day with a great attitude, right? Show up every day with a great attitude and be willing. I think that is the number one thing that keeps people from achieving the maximum success is they become concerned about not knowing what they don't know. Whatever we magnify becomes the biggest thing in our life, right? That's why it's called magnifying. You take out a magnifying glass, you're going to make it bigger. So focus on the fact that, you know what, you got the job. That was half the battle. You got through school. That was a pretty good accomplishment. So you can do some things. And now just go out there and really start betting on yourself. Are you going to make mistakes? Yes. But I told all my employees as a manager, if you're not making mistakes, I don't think you're trying.
You're not doing anything.
Just don't make the same mistake twice, right? I mean, come on, can we get real here? So go out, and I think our culture kind of works against us. I mean, we do have a cancel culture, but you know what? I still put your faith out there, bet on yourself, and go out there. I remember my first day when they gave me my routes. They handed me a route book. This is back in the old days, so I had a binder. It had every one of my jobs in there, all my routes, and I'm like, man, I don't know what to do here. So it was kind of overwhelming. So I went and met with my mechanics, and they made total fun of me because I was, not an elevator guy. And, it's kind of the fraternity of elevators, oh, you're not going to make it, blah, 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 whatever.
Who's this?
But then I just sat down and I said, hey guys, hey guys, I want to do stuff that's going to make your job easier. So show me in every one of these jobs what I can do to make it easier for you. It's going to make your job easier. And they did. And so I went, and that was back when we were going from the mechanical door edges to the new high-tech infrared door edges. And so I made these proposals. I think I had like 10 of them, and I didn't know what I was doing, but I just went out. And sure enough, the first one I go to, I put the proposal down on the customer's desk, and he starts asking me questions, and I had no answers. And I said, those are all great questions, and I'll have to get you, I'll get the answers for you and come back. But Matt, by the time that I had delivered all of those proposals, I had already answered those questions that first customer had just by going through the process.
Right.
And so that's my advice. Just get out there and do it. You come this far, you can do it.
Well said. So thank you, Michael. I appreciate you being on the show today. It's been a lot of fun, and I wish you the best in your new adventure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Elevator Careers Podcast, sponsored by the Allred Group, a leader in elevator industry recruiting. You can check us out online at elevatorcareers.net. Please subscribe, and until next time, stay safe.